CEO hires a waitress as his fake wedding date until his rival exposes their deal. The hotel's grand doors gleamed under the golden evening light, spilling warmth onto the polished marble steps. Inside, laughter floated through the air, mingling with the soft tinkle of crystal glasses and the hum of a string quartet rehearsing the next song. Guests in flowing gowns and tailored suits drifted across the ballroom like carefully placed pieces on a chessboard, each one poised, polished, perfect. And then there was Ryan Carter, tall, impeccably dressed in a midnight blue suit, perfectly tailored, the kind of suit that looked like it belonged in a magazine. But his gray eyes were sharp, restless, scanning the crowd with the attention of a man who didn't just show up to weddings. He analyzed them. Tonight wasn't about romance or celebration. Tonight was strategy. Across the room, in the midst of the buzzing crowd, Ryan spotted a familiar face he didn't want to see. Lydia Samantha Blake, his ex-girlfriend, standing beside someone who looked far too close to him for comfort. And across from her, leaning casually against the open bar, was Julian Reed, his business rival, the kind of man who could ruin him with a whisper and a smile. Ryan's jaw tightened. Walking in alone wasn't an option. Not tonight. Not when every whisper, every sideways glance, every smile held a weight of judgment. He needed someone beside him who wouldn't crumble under scrutiny, who would make him look untouchable. That's when he noticed her, a waitress, scurrying past with trays of champagne, her uniform slightly wrinkled, hair pulled back in a hasty ponytail, eyes wide with exhaustion. A simple name tag on her chest read Lila. She looked like she didn't belong in this world of silk dresses and sparkling cufflinks. And yet, there was something there, something grounded, something real that drew his gaze like a magnet. He approached her before he could second-guess himself. "Hey," he said, his voice calm, controlled, but carrying just enough urgency to make her freeze. She looked up, startled. Gray eyes met brown, and for a moment the room fell away. "I need a favor," he continued. "A big one." Her brow furrowed. I'm just working tonight," she said, glancing nervously at the tray in her hands. "I can't." He held up a hand. "I'll make it worth your while. More than worth it." Her pulse quickened. "I don't understand. What could you possibly—" "I need you to come with me tonight. Pretend you're my date." Her laugh was incredulous, sharp but nervous. "Pretend? My what?" He leaned closer, lowering his voice as if sharing a secret that only she could hear. "Trust me, just a few hours. I have a good reason, a very good reason, and I'll pay you, whatever you need. It's not a favor. It's a deal." She blinked, stunned, processing. The world outside the ballroom's glittering walls, the mounting bills, the overdue rent, the dreams she'd been putting off, crept into her mind. And then, with a hesitant exhale, she met his gaze. "Okay," she whispered. Ryan gave a small, approving nod. That was all he needed. "Follow me," he said, gently guiding her toward the grand doors, his hand brushing hers just enough to anchor her in the moment. As they stepped through the threshold, the soft golden light of the ballroom washed over them, glittering off the chandeliers, bouncing in the polished marble. Conversations faltered for a second as they passed, eyes briefly flicking toward the unexpected pair. He didn't flinch. She didn't retreat. And in that fleeting, suspended moment, neither of them knew that the night ahead would change everything. They paused just outside the ballroom, the soft of the party filtering through the doors. Lila shifted uncomfortably, clutching the strap of her apron like a lifeline. The glittering crowd inside seemed a world away, one she had never been part of, and didn't think she ever would. Ryan glanced at her, studying her carefully. She wasn't polished. She wasn't poised. But there was a quiet strength there, a steady heartbeat beneath the nerves and uncertainty. Exactly what he needed. "I don't know if this is the good idea," she muttered, her voice barely audible over the murmur of celebration behind them. He held up his hand, calm but firm. "It's a great idea," he said. "For both of us." Her brow furrowed. "For both of us?" "Yes." His gaze softened slightly, but there was steel in his voice. "I don't want to walk in there alone. There's someone I can't face by myself. And You get to walk out of here with more than just an evening you'll probably forget. She frowned, confused. What do you mean? He reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and pulled out a slim envelope, almost like a magician revealing a hidden card. You do this for me, he said. I'll pay you enough to cover things that matter. Her eyes widened, flicking nervously toward the envelope. I can't. Listen, he cut in, his tone steady but urgent. I know you have responsibilities. Family, bills, dreams you haven't told anyone about because there's never enough time, never enough money. I'm not asking for friendship. I'm not asking for favors. This is a business arrangement. You do this for a few hours, and you walk away with exactly what you need. Nothing more, nothing less. Her heartbeat sped. She thought her younger brother's overdue textbooks, the rent creeping closer to past due, the dream she tucked away, a small art studio she could barely imagine affording. And suddenly, this absurd request, this impossible favor, wasn't so impossible after all. And if I say yes, she whispered, I have to pretend I like you? He smirked, just a flicker of amusement in his gray eyes. You have to pretend we're a couple. That's it. Smiles, a little hand-holding, maybe. Act like we belong together. No one will suspect a thing if you stick with me. She studied him, this stranger in a designer suit who seemed unerringly calm in the face of chaos. She thought about how she had spent years invisible, overlooked, surviving on her own. And yet, here he was, offering her a chance to step into the light. Not because of who she was pretending to be, but because of who he knew she could be. Okay, she said finally, her voice firm despite the flutter in her chest. I'll do it. Ryan's lips curled into a small, approving smile. Not smug, not boastful, just a quiet acknowledgement that they had a deal. Good, he said. He showed her the envelope, then tucked it back into his jacket. You'll get this when our deal is done. Everything you need, as promised. Lila nodded, already feeling the weight of possibility. She glanced at the door to the ballroom, at the glittering crowd waiting on the other side, and then back at Ryan. And what about you? He shrugged, deceptively casual, though his jaw was tense. I get what I came for. A partner in survival. And maybe a little less loneliness tonight. She raised an eyebrow. Partner in survival? Yeah, he said softly. Tonight, we survive the impossible together. And with that, he offered his arm, perfectly poised, yet somehow grounding. Lila hesitated for only a heartbeat before slipping hers into his. In that simple touch, she felt an unexpected certainty, the kind that comes when choices are risky but right. The doors to the ballroom were massive, carved with gleaming under the soft glow of chandeliers. Ryan held a handle for Lila, his grip steady, a quiet anchor in the storm of her nerves. She hesitated for a moment, taking a breath as if summoning courage from somewhere deep within herself, before slipping her hand into his. As they stepped inside, the room seemed to shift around them. Conversations faltered, heads turned. Crystal glasses paused midair. Lila's heart skipped. The golden light bounced off gowns, sparkling jewels, polished shoes. Everything screamed perfection. Everything she wasn't. Her shoes pinched slightly, her apron hidden beneath a borrowed shawl, and yet Ryan walked beside her as if she belonged here. And somehow with him, she felt like she did. He leaned in just enough for her to hear, his voice low but calm. Remember, just act natural. I've got you. She nodded, her hands nervously clutching at the fabric of her uniform. Natural. Right. That was the plan. But as they moved past clusters of perfectly groomed guests, she realized something strange was happening. Eyes followed them. Whispers trailed them like shadows. And yet, no one stopped them. No one questioned them. Ryan's presence was magnetic. People instinctively gave him space, a subtle acknowledgement of the power he carried without having to announce it. Lila, in contrast, felt every stare like a spotlight. Her palms were slick, her stomach a tight coil. And still, Ryan's calm beside her was steadying, like a hand on her back guiding her through a river she hadn't meant to cross. A waiter passed with a silver tray of champagne, and Ryan intercepted a glass, handing it to her with a small smile. First test, he whispered. Hold it like you belong. Lila laughed softly, a nervous, bubbling sound. I'm terrible at this. You're fine, he said, not condescending, just honest. You look real. That's better than perfect. She stared at him for a moment, surprised. Real. In this room of rehearsed smiles and polished movements. He noticed her for her, not for what she wasn't. They reached the center of the room, a quiet corner near a towering floral archway. Lila let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The soft hum of conversation felt distant now, the music gentle in her chest rather than deafening. She could see Ryan clearly, his jaw relaxed slightly, his gray eyes scanning, protective yet unreadable, a mixture of power and vulnerability she hadn't expected. So, she murmured, adjusting the borrowed shawl. This is the wedding your ex is at? He gave a small nod, a shadow passing over his features. Yes, she's here with him. And that's the part one didn't want to face alone. Her eyes widened. You could have just not come. He shook his head slowly. Not an option. Too much at stake. And I'd rather survive it with someone real by my side than pretend to be fine alone. She swallowed, the weight of the moment settling over her. Somehow, the glittering ballroom, the judgmental glances, the tension of lies and pretense, they all felt manageable with him here. And as she glanced down at the champagne in her hand, then up at Ryan's calm, guiding presence, she realized something startling. She wasn't just surviving. She was beginning to belong. Ryan caught her glance and gave the tiniest nod, almost imperceptible, but enough. Enough to tell her, I've got you. And tonight, we'll both get through this, together. And in that quiet exchange, as the music shifted into a lilting waltz and the room's attention flickered between gossip and celebration, Lila felt it. The impossible night ahead might just be bearable, maybe even extraordinary, with him by her side. They settled into a quiet corner of the ballroom, near a towering floral arrangement that softened the sharp edges of crystal glasses and polished floors. Lila sank into a chair, her hands gripping the edges like a lifeline. Ryan stayed beside her, tall, composed, his presence somehow both commanding and protective. So, she began, twisting the napkin in her hands. We're fake dating now. He gave a slow, faint smile. Seems like it. But if we're going to do this properly, we need a story. She raised an eyebrow. A story? Yes, he said, hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the room as if weighing every whisper. People will notice if we just exist. We need a little context. How do we meet? How long have we known each other? Lila tapped her chin, playing along despite the absurdity of it all. The cafe, she said, with a shrug that made her seem casual. You, she paused, trying to match the tone of someone who would rehearse a lie. You spilled coffee on my favorite notebook. I was furious. You apologized, and then Ryan smirked, nodding along. And then I bought you another latte, tried to make it right, and somehow convinced you to let me take you out for dinner. You thought I was charming, mysterious, maybe a little reckless. She laughed quietly, the sound blending with the gentle hum of the ballroom. You were reckless. Fine, he said, mock bowing. Reckless, charming, gray-eyed CEO at your service. And you, he paused to glance at her, are Emily or Lydia. Our story doesn't need the real last name, does it? Lila shook her head, smirking despite herself. Lila Smith, freelance photographer, accidental wedding crasher. That works. They shook hands in mock formality, a small squeeze that lingered just long enough to send a spark up her arm. It was ridiculous, but somehow it felt oddly comfortable. As they moved through the ballroom, pretending to chat and laugh, Lila could feel the weight of curious eyes. Whispers drifted past like snowflakes. Who is she? Why is she with him? And then the first ripple of tension arrived. He saw his ex, Lydia, smirking as she whispered to a woman in a pearl-studded dress. The woman's eyes widened, then leaned toward clustered guests, whispering just loudly enough for Lila to catch. That's the waitress he hired. Can you believe it? Her stomach dropped. Heat rose to her cheeks. She froze, hands tightening around the champagne glass. Ryan noticed immediately. He reached for her hand, brushing her fingers gently. Ignore them, he said softly, his eyes scanning the room for the source. They don't matter. But the whispers persisted, low, sharp, cutting. Lila's mind raced. She'd agreed to this as a business deal, a few hours of acting. But now the judgment was real, public, exposed. Are you okay? Ryan asked, leaning closer, his voice almost a whisper meant only for her. I'm fine, she said, forcing a smile, though her heart pounded against her ribs like a warning drum. He didn't look convinced. He stayed by her side, guiding her subtly through the crowd, subtly protecting her from the brunt of it. His presence was steady, grounding her in a world that suddenly felt hostile. And yet, the tension wasn't just from the whispers. It was from the stakes, from the closeness that was beginning to grow between them. Every laugh they shared, every subtle glance, every accidental touch of fingers seemed to intensify the spark neither of them had anticipated. Lila caught herself studying him, how his jaw relaxed when he smiled, the way his eyes softened when he laughed quietly. Ryan, of course, noticed. He did what CEOs do best, assessed the situation and acted, not just as a business partner, but as something more. He leaned in, keeping his voice low, almost conspiratorial. Remember, he said, tonight we survived together. And I promise you, nothing out there can touch us as long as we stick together. She swallowed, heart still racing. And for the first time that evening, she believed him. Not the whispers, not the judgment. They didn't matter. Not if he was here. And just like that, pretending began to feel a little more like real. The night had settled into a rhythm. Lila and Ryan moved through the ballroom like they belonged, laughing softly, leaning into the small illusions they had created. But beneath the surface, the currents of the room were shifting. A sharp voice cut through the hum of conversation, like a knife. Isn't that the waitress he hired? Lila froze mid-step. Her glass wobbled in her hand, and she felt every eye in the vicinity tilt toward her. Ryan's jaw tightened, but his hand stayed lightly on her back, steadying her. Ignore it, he murmured. But the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, sharper. Another voice joined. I heard she's just his pay date. Can you believe he brought her here? Heat rose to Lila's cheeks. Her heartbeat thundered. All the hours of pretending, all the careful steps to the ballroom, collapsed into a single crushing realization. Their secret was out. She felt herself retreating, instinctively. I can't, she whispered, voice shaking. I can't do this. Ryan reached for her hand again, but she yanked it away. You promised, she said, eyes brimming with tears. You said this was just supposed to be safe. I didn't anticipate them finding out, he said, frustration and guilt lacing his tone. I should have protected you better. Her chest tightened. She looked around at the glittering faces, the judgment, the subtle sneers. I trusted you, she said, voice trembling. And now everyone knows I'm nothing. Just some hired girl. Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice so only she could hear. You're not nothing. You're not hired. You're here because you chose to be brave, to face this room with me. That's more than anyone else here can say. But the words fell hollow against the weight of humiliation pressing down on her. She backed away, tears spilling over despite her efforts to remain composed. I'm done, she whispered, voice breaking. I can't stand here and be a spectacle. Ryan's expression shifted, sharp, desperate, the calm veneer slipping just slightly. Lila, please don't run. Not like this. She shook her head, turning toward the doors. The whispers followed her, relentless. She clutched her bag to her chest, a shield against the world that had decided to define her worth tonight. And then he ran, not through grand gestures or dramatic speeches, not with a limousine or flashing lights. He ran across the polished floors, weaving to the startled guests, his hand outstretched. Lila, he called, voice carrying, firm but raw. She froze, just outside the cluster of the ballroom's grand arch, her back to the doors, eyes glistening with unshed tears. Go away, she said, barely audible. Just let me leave. No, he said, stopping just short of her. His chest heaved slightly, not from the sprint, but from the weight of needing to get it right. I won't let you leave thinking any of that matters. None of it does. What they say, what they whisper, they aren't with a fraction of who you are. Her hands trembled. You don't understand, she whispered. You hired me. It was a deal. That's all I am to you. He shook his head slowly, meeting her gaze with a clarity that made her heart stop. No, you were never a deal. You were never just a placeholder. Tonight, I realized something important. I don't care about appearances. I don't care about whispers. I care about you, all of you, not as an illusion, not as a business arrangement, but as you. Her breath caught. You mean that? He took a step closer, bridging the space, steadying himself in a way that made the chaos of the ballroom feel miles away. I do. I promise. I would choose this moment. You, over every boardroom, every deal, every expectation in my life. I want this to be real. The tears broke free then, and she let them fall, trembling as the tension in her body released. Ryan reached for her hands again, gently holding them. It's okay, he murmured. You don't have to pretend anymore. Not for me. Not for anyone. And in that moment, the whispers faded. The judgment faded. All that remained was him. Steady, unwavering, and willing to stand against the world for her. For the first time all night, she let herself believe. Not in the illusion, not in the pretense, but in them. The night air was crisp as Lila stepped onto the balcony, the glow of the ballroom fading behind her. She hugged her arms close, letting the cool breeze brush against her face. The sounds of music, laughter, and murmurs drifted softly upward, but they felt distant, like they belonged to someone else's world. Ryan followed, his suit jacket tossed over one shoulder, sleeves rolled up as though he had shed the weight of appearances. He stopped a few feet away, his gaze fixed on her, steady and unwavering. Lila, he began, voice low, careful, yet carrying that intensity that made her chest tighten. She didn't turn immediately, her eyes tracing the moonlight over the water below. Why are you here? She whispered, almost to herself. He took a step closer. Because you're here, and because I need you to hear the truth, not as a fake date, not as a stunt, as me. Her hands clenched at her sides. Ryan, this is crazy. You could have. I could have walked away, he interrupted softly, a hint of desperation threading his words. I could have left and let them humiliate you, let them whisper, let the night be ruined, but I didn't. Because you're not just a character in some story I invented for convenience. You're you, and I care about you. Not because it's convenient, not because it looks good, because you're the only one I want to stand beside. Her breath caught. She finally turned, meeting his eyes, searching for any hint of doubt. There was none, only honesty, raw, unflinching honesty. You mean that? She asked, voice small, trembling. He nodded slowly, taking another step toward her. I do. Every word. I don't care about the whispers, the judgment, the expectations. I don't want perfection. I don't want appearances. I want us real, messy, beautiful, exactly as we are. Her lips parted, tears welling in her eyes. You could walk away at any moment, she whispered. You could go back to your world, your life, and I'd never see you again. Ryan shook his head, stepping even closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. I won't. I can't. Because it's you. You make the chaos worth it. Her fingers curled around his hands, feeling the solid reassurance in his grip. She swallowed, letting the emotion rise, the vulnerability she fought to contain finally spilling into trust. And then, slowly, deliberately, he leaned in. Their lips met in a kiss that was nothing like the chaos of the ballroom, nothing like the whispers or the judgment. It was quiet, grounding, a promise, real and steady, warm, full of the words neither had said aloud until now. When they finally pulled back, Lila rested her forehead against his chest, feeling the steady beat at his heart. Still think I'm just the wrong girl at the wrong wedding? He chuckled softly, arms wrapped around her. No, I think you were exactly where you were meant to be. For the first time all night, Lila believed it. The city lights sparkled below, The moon hung low over the ocean, and the chaos of the night became a distant memory. Here, in the quiet, with Ryan beside her, she was not a fake date, not a joke, not a placeholder. She was chosen, seen, loved, and in that moment, the rest of the world could wait. The ballroom felt impossibly bright after the quiet of the balcony. Guests were still lingering, murmuring quietly among themselves, champagne flutes half raised. Lila's hands were still trembling slightly, and she felt every gaze burning on her. Ryan took her hand, firm and grounding, as they stepped back into the crowd. "Ready?" he asked, a quiet strength in his voice. She nodded, though her stomach fluttered like a bird trapped in her chest. They moved toward the center of the room, the murmur of conversation slowing as the guests realized something was happening. He raised a hand, and the room grew still. Ryan's gaze scanned the room and locked onto his rival, Julian, and his ex, Lydia, who were watching with smug smiles. He led Lila directly to them, his voice low but firm, carrying only to their small group. "You look confused, Julian," Ryan said, his tone cool. "Let me be clear. Lila is not a paid date. She's the woman I choose to be with. Your opinion on the matter is irrelevant." He didn't wait for a reply. He turned to Lila, his voice softening. "Let's go. This party is over." He took her hand, and together they walked out, leaving the stunned silence behind them. Lila's own breath caught. She felt the weight of years of doubt, of being overlooked, of feeling invisible, lift in that moment. She could barely speak, but Ryan's hand on hers grounded her, steady and unwavering. A few moments passed, and the tension broke like a wave. Lila finally lifted her head, tears spilling down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of relief, of joy. She stepped closer to Ryan, squeezing his hand. "You really mean it?" she whispered. "I do," he replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And tonight, everyone else can see it too." He leaned down, resting his forehead against hers. The room seemed to blur around them. Chandeliers, champagne flutes, murmuring guests fading into insignificance. The only thing that mattered was this: the truth between them, spoken aloud, undeniable. For the first time, Lila didn't feel like a mistake. She didn't feel like a pretender. She felt seen, chosen, loved. And as the music softly swelled, Ryan whispered, "No more pretenses. No more whispers. Just us." She smiled through her tears, her heart full. "Just us," she echoed. In that moment, amid the glitter and chatter of the ballroom, something shifted. Lila wasn't just standing next to Ryan. She was standing with him. Equal, brave, unafraid. The room buzzed, yes, but it no longer mattered. They had declared what truly counted: their love, their choice, their truth. And for the first time that night, Lila believed without question. She was exactly where she was meant to be. Section 8, Epilogue and Happy Ending. From pretend to forever. Duration, 5 minutes. The weeks after the wedding were quiet, but full of unexpected joy. Lila no longer worried about whispers or stares. She and Ryan had settled into a rhythm that was unpolished, but perfect for them. Coffee in the mornings, long walks through the city, laughter spilling freely even on ordinary days. Ryan had returned to his world of boardrooms and high-stakes meetings, but now he had someone who grounded him. Lila had returned to her life as a waitress, yet somehow the world felt brighter, more welcoming. She wasn't pretending anymore, and neither was he. One evening, they found themselves back at the hotel where it had all begun. The grand chandelier sparkled. The music hummed softly in the background, and memories of whispered doubts, stolen glances, and that first awkward, thrilling ballroom entrance came rushing back. Ryan took Lila's hand, guiding her to the balcony overlooking the city lights. "Remember this view?" he asked. She laughed softly. "I remember thinking I'd never belong in a place like this." "And now," he prompted, a smile tugging at his lips. "Now, I know I belong wherever you are," she whispered. Ryan leaned close, pressing his forehead to hers. "And I belong wherever you are, too. Always." They stayed there, silent, letting the night wrap around them like a blanket. The chaos, the whispers, the insecurities, they were all gone, replaced by something simple, something real. Love that didn't need to impress anyone. Love that was truthful, messy, and theirs. And for anyone watching, anyone who's ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or invisible, there was a lesson in Lila's journey. Sometimes, the right place is a ballroom, a party, or even the world applause. The right place is standing next to someone who truly sees you and choosing to stand there together. If this story touched your heart, even just a little, join us by subscribing to Heartfelt Tales TV and turning on notifications. We share stories of love, courage, and resilience, the kind that stay with you long after the story ends. Because every heart deserves to feel chosen. Every story deserves to be told. And tonight, Lila and Ryan weren't just a fake date and CEO. They were a reminder that love, real, messy, beautiful love, always finds a way.